Hello and welcome to Quality Improvement Program for Civil Service Mains Examination 2020. In this video session, we are going to discuss question number 9 of Social Issues, Social Justice and Science and Technology test of L2 test series. During the course of this discussion, we will not only see the solution to the question in hand, but we will also understand as to why this question was asked. What is the line of thinking of UPSC? How does UPSC frame question? And we will also evaluate towards the end the answer that I will present to you. The question that we are going to discuss in this session is this: particularly vulnerable tribal groups are in dire need of urgent attention by the government. Discuss. It's a 10 marker, 150 words question. There are 3 reasons why this question was asked in your test. Reason number 1, UPSC has been touching upon vulnerable section, especially scheduled tribes in the mains exam. This question of 2017 was, what are 2 major legal initiatives by the state since independence addressing discrimination against scheduled tribes? In 2016, UPSC has asked this question, why are the tribes in India referred to as scheduled tribes? Indicate the major provision enshrined in the Constitution of India for their upliftment. Although both these questions were asked in GS paper 1, but still, the focus is there on scheduled tribe, and in the social justice section of GS paper 2, there is one question due for the scheduled tribes or tribes in general. So we feel that this particular topic, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, is important for the coming mains exam because it's part of the syllabus as well. In the GS paper 2 syllabus, there's a very important topic mentioned: welfare schemes for vulnerable section of the population by the center and state. Mechanism, laws, institutions and bodies constituted for the protection and betterment of these vulnerable sections. And from this social justice section, a question on particularly vulnerable tribal groups can be asked. There is a third very important reason why this question was put in the test. I'm going to tell you something very interesting and very intriguing. See, the thing is, the questions which are asked in the prelims exam, they become very important for the mains exam as well, either for the current year or for the next year. And it goes vice versa as well. Questions which are asked in the mains exam, they become important for the next prelims exam as well. Just to give you some illustrations regarding what I'm saying, see this question of 2015, this question was based on equatorial countercurrent. The broad topic for this would be ocean currents. This is an important topic to be covered from the Physical Geography NCERT of class 11. But if you see that UPSC has asked a question regarding ocean current in prelims, and in the same year, they also asked a question regarding ocean current in the mains exam. It may seem coincidental if you have not thought about it before, but there is a pattern. Let me show you other coincidences. There was a question on International Regional Navigation Satellite System of India in the prelims exam of 2018. In the same year, in the mains exam as well, there was a question on International Regional Navigation Satellite System. Similarly, in 2018, there was a question on Einstein's General Theory of Relativity. And there was a fairly difficult question in the mains of 2018 that was on Bose-Einstein's statistics. See, the point is that there was a question in prelims based on Einstein's work. There is a topic mentioned in the Science and Tech syllabus, contribution of Indian scientists. So to make it coherent with the main syllabus, UPSC asked about Bose-Einstein's statistics. We can go on, and there are so many correlations that you will be amazed to know if you don't know it already. See, there was a question in the prelims of 2019 regarding sand. The question basically was on the management of minor minerals of India, and regarding that, they gave 3 statements on sand administration in India. Very interestingly, in the same year in the mains exam, there was a question on sand mining. The question was, coastal sand mining, whether legal or illegal, poses one of the biggest threats to our environment. Analyze the impact of sand mining along the Indian coast, citing specific examples. I can go for hours and hours showing you this relation, but I hope I have made the point. And you would remember that there was a question asked in the prelims exam regarding particularly vulnerable tribal group. And that is why it becomes extremely important, extremely important for the mains of this year. This topic is so important that you must have a holistic notes on this. For that, you can take the help of DNS, you can take the help of Focus Magazine. Since it's a 10-marker question, you will not face difficulty in decoding the question or presenting your answer. 10 markers generally are straightforward. All you have to do is provide quality content in concise manner. The question has a statement, particularly vulnerable tribal group are in dire need of urgent attention by the government. So a good way of starting the answer would be to define particularly vulnerable tribal groups or give a basic description of them. Then in the body, we must give the characteristic of particularly vulnerable tribal groups and some data, some reports, some committee findings about their present status, which calls for urgent attention by the state governments and Government of India. Then in the conclusion, we must highlight the importance of safeguarding the culture of particularly vulnerable tribal groups and mention certain initiatives by Government of India. Now let's begin answering this question. See, primitive tribal groups, PTGs, who were less developed among the tribal groups were created as a separate category by Dhebar Commission back in 1973. And they were renamed by the Government of India as particularly vulnerable tribal groups in 2006. So the genesis of particularly vulnerable tribal group is in Dhebar Commission that submitted its report in 1973. Particularly vulnerable tribal groups are homogeneous with small population, relatively physically isolated, absence of written language, relatively simple technology. They are using primitive agricultural technologies and they have a slower rate of change in their population that makes them vulnerable to extinction. These are the common characteristics based on which a tribe can be notified as particularly vulnerable tribal group. So this makes our introduction, the description and the basic characteristics. Now we will come down to answer head-on what has been asked. Even though most vulnerable, particularly vulnerable tribal group receive least attention from the government. And if we can prove this statement, then our job will be done, that they are in dire need of urgent attention. See, they get least amount of attention. This can be proven from the fact that out of 75 declared particularly vulnerable tribal groups, the baseline survey exists for about 40. We do not have enough data about rest. Having a baseline survey about a population is the most basic thing for the welfare of that population. If you do not have enough data, there will be no proper formulation of schemes for their welfare. This basic fact that we do not know about them proves that they get least amount of attention. And because of that, there has been hindrance in the effective implementation of the welfare schemes. This is the most important and most basic thing. Then benefits of the government initiative does not reach to all particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Particularly vulnerable tribal groups are the backward groups among the scheduled tribes. But even among particularly vulnerable tribal groups, there are certain groups which are most backward, and even for the schemes which are there for particularly vulnerable tribal groups, the last ones are not getting the benefit. For example, there have been micro projects for Langia Saura. It's a tribe, particularly vulnerable tribal group in Odisha. But this project has been established only in 2 blocks. 2 blocks, not even district. Because enough information has not been collected about their whereabouts. The problem lies here. Additionally, there is no uniform principle adopted by the states in identifying the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Particularly vulnerable tribal groups are identified mostly by the Home Ministry, but suggestion can be given by the states. In the Standing Committee report back in 2002, it was stated, so this is the stand of the Parliament itself, that particularly vulnerable tribal groups have faced systemic alienation from their resources. Because of the developmental projects like dams, construction of linear projects like railway and roads, they have to evacuate their place of living and they have to forego their way of life. One of the most important examples in the recent time, when Simli Pal Tiger Reserve was declared, then Mankidia tribe were asked to get out of that place. And they have been denied rights to live in the place of their living in Odisha, where they were living for ages, and even the courts have not helped this tribe. And because of plethora of reasons, because of sometimes their own ignorance, because of non-availability of public services, particularly vulnerable tribal groups suffer from severe health problems of anemia, malaria, micronutrient deficiency, skin diseases, and many, many more. They also have to face humiliation through human safaris. You must be aware that in some part of Andaman and Nicobar, the tourists are taken on safaris and they are shown these tribes as if they are apes or some kind of animals. So because of these reasons, they are in dire need of urgent attention by government. So the body is done. Now we have to write conclusion. In the conclusion I have written, some of the particularly vulnerable tribal group are even on the verge of extinction. For example, Shompen and Zarawa tribe of Andaman. Thus, particularly vulnerable tribal groups are in dire need of special and undivided attention on priority. Ministry of Tribal Affairs is running a scheme of development of particularly vulnerable tribal groups. It's an umbrella scheme for various kind of development for particularly vulnerable tribal group. This scheme must be implemented with full efficiency and proper administrative safeguards against corruption and misimplementation. With that conclusion, we would complete our answer. Now we must evaluate the answer that we have done. Since I have written the answer and I am evaluating, so there's conflict of interest. But I'll try to be very, very objective in the evaluation of my answer. First, was our answer relevant? The relevancy of answer comes from two things. One, whether you were close to the question. Did you answer exactly what was asked? And two, where you were keeping close with the syllabus. Meaning, have you used the topics which are mentioned in the syllabus? Did you use the vocabulary of the paper? You cannot answer the question in general English language. You have to use some technical terms of the paper. If you are in GS paper 2, the way you would answer would be different from GS paper 1 of society or GS paper 4 of ethics. So by reading your answer, one must make out which paper's question have you answered. Since it's a 10 marker, the question was simple, so we were keeping close to the question. There's no problem in that. We were also keeping close with the syllabus. We have used the reference of Debar Commission of 1973. We have also used the concept of baseline surveys for particularly vulnerable tribal group. We have also used the specific example of Langia Saura of Odisha. We also have used the example of Mankidia community of Odisha. We also have used the example of Shompen and Zarawa of Andaman. And these have considerably enriched our answer. We have divided our answer into introduction, body and conclusion. We have used short sentences and we have used point format. So there was no problem in structure and presentation. Since I have used Microsoft Word, so I'll not have problem with grammar as well. But you must take care of this. We have answered the question in 164 words, which is not bad. The limit is 150, but you can go plus minus 10%. So you can go till 165.